Joe talks about Joe. And now, your host, Joe Slepsky.
Hey, Joe on Joe listeners, it's me, Joe Slepsky, and I'm back and you're back. This is the quarantine re-releases of our original tracks going back 4 years, and I hope you're enjoying these as much as I'm enjoying reliving them, warts and all. I think you can easily hear where I'm finding myself and finding what the show turned out to be, so I'm really happy to share these with you guys. Again, we pulled these back from behind the Patreon wall, and I wanted to make them available to everybody during this time to share and give and listen and have fun, especially because G.I. Joe's back on YouTube now. So, yeah, so I appreciate that. And you guys can always follow me at Joe on Joe Pod on Facebook and Instagram and Twitter. Let me know what you think of some of these early episodes, how terrible they are, or how funny they are, or how awful they are. And we're starting recording back up again, so reach out to me. Let me know, joeandjoepod@gmail.com. Let me know if you want to join me for an episode. I believe we're going to jump into G.I. Joe Extreme very, very soon. So without any further ado, here is the OG track from Joe on Joe 4 years ago. Enjoy.
You are listening to the Joe on Joe podcast, the only podcast where Joe talks about Joe. And now, your host, Joe Slepsky.
Welcome back to Joe on Joe. This is me, Joe Slepsky. I'm back, people. I'm not sure exactly what happened in the last couple of weeks, but I listened to the episodes, and they were concerning. Let's put it that way. Now, this week's episode is entitled The Phantom Brigade, and its original air date was October 9th, 1985. The writer was Charmin DeVono, a name I'm not familiar with. It's a fun episode, but it's very much an episode that is cartoony. By that, I mean you could almost take out the Joes and replace them with, I don't know, the Scooby Gang or the Centurions or any number of cartoons and not really have the outcome change all that much. It's got some supernatural elements, which is a little odd for G.I. Joe. It's not one of those classic episodes where you're like, that's why I love the show. Now, having said that, it's totally a lot of fun. In fact, when you watch it, it plays like an old Silver Age comic book. That's the best I can kind of compare the two, like an old issue of the Justice League. Something definitely DC, where the Justice League would just come across random ghosts, because there are ghosts in this story. Oh, and real quick, I want to say thank you for following me on Facebook. And if you're listening, please go to Facebook and like my page, Joe on Joe Pod, on Twitter, at Joe on Joe Pod. And most of all, if you're listening via iTunes, please go on to iTunes and give me a rating and review. iTunes uses the ratings in order to decide what podcast to feature on their front page and stuff. So all the help we can get is appreciated. So thanks again, loyal listeners. I appreciate you supporting me after the last couple of weeks of insanity. I'll get a little bit more into that as the show goes on. And here we go with the Phantom Brigade. So like I was saying, I woke up last week hogtied and in the basement of my house. My wife found me. I was unconscious for a couple days, and I don't really know what happened. But I listened to the episodes, and I'm going to say a synthpoid got me. All we found was a puddle of gray goo kind of sitting in my chair. Not the typical gray goo that could be found in my chair. Different gray goo. So, I'm back. We'll have no more of this Make Cobra Great Again stuff. We're here to support the Joes and make sure that Cobra stays in their place. So, thanks for coming back and thanks for making sure I was safe. I appreciate it. We're going to get into this episode, The Phantom Brigade, with a little ghost stories going on.
Major Blood to Firebat 1.
So we open. Major Blood flying overhead a U.S. military base. We've got a whole squadron of Firebats, which is pretty sweet. I like that they're using the Firebats instead of like all the Cobra Rattlers. Firebats are the ship that was on the inside of the Cobra Terrordrome that when you press the lever on the side, the ship popped up out the middle. So Major Blood and all these fire bats, they're firing on it. Now, I think I mistakenly said U.S. base earlier. It's a Russian air base. So Cobra is full on assaulting this Russian military base. We've got his tanks, we've got fire bats, and our buddy Ivan here. Now, when I first watched this, rewatched this really, because I've seen these all before, there was a big part of me that was like, is this when they introduced the October Guard? And don't get your hopes up. We're not going to get any October Guard. In fact, there's nothing in this episode really kind of sticks with you. But
attacking the munitions factory. Let's get them.
In the middle of this munitions factory attack, we got a bunch of Sky Strikers that show up to kind of save the day.
Sky Strikers, they're on your bloody tails.
Well, it's nice that Major Blood kind of narrated the action for the other pilots, like they didn't know that they had a bunch of Sky Strikers. And okay, animation on that. We just had a fire bat blow up.
We're almost at the gate. And don't worry about Duke. He's right here beside me.
Yeah, I'll just bet he is.
That's crazy. That's CoverGirl kind of like hitting on Duke in front of Duke to Scarlet, kind of like, hey, I got your boo, I got your man. What's your man got to do with me? It's really funny. So when the fire bat blew up, the ejector seat popped out, and the ejector seat erupted a parachute. But then the guy that was in the ejector seat also fell out of the ejector seat, and he had a parachute on. This episode is so safe. There's 2 parachutes for every Cobra Trooper. Gung Ho and Duke, they rescue some of these Russians. They sound very Chekhov-y.
As I started to say, just like Count Dracula.
And turns out it's not in Russia.
Strange things happen
It's this
in these
like
Carpathian mountains.
kind of strangely racist towards gypsies assumption, like on Gung Ho's part, that like, hey, you sound like Count Dracula because you have an Eastern European accent. So apparently this attack is in Transylvania. But it's kind of funny. Like, hey, you sound like a character I've seen in a movie. Gung Ho doesn't know where he's at. Like, they didn't get any briefings on the plane to say, hey, Gung Ho, we're flying to Transylvania. In Transylvania, they have these accents. Like, I don't.
Right, move it.
It's kind of funny. Like, they needed someone to give the exposition, and Gung Ho drew the short straw, so he sounds like kind of a racist dope.
Hand me, you reptiles.
Inside this, we just saw this kind of a Dracula-esque castle. We see inside that there's a bunch of eels, Cobra eels, and the Baroness, and they're escorting / kidnapping an old woman, an old gypsy woman. And it turns out we are getting into a little bit of haunted house territory.
But they were also outnumbered. They were cowards.
We pay them to fight, not flee.
So Cobra Commander's complaining about his soldiers, even though he's the one who always flees immediately. Baroness shows up with his gypsy lady.
Magic is very unpredictable. You tamper with forces that you do not.
Silence.
Yeah, so you could see where this is going. Now, Cobra's outfitted this castle with a bunch of electronics in the background, which reminds me of Castle Grayskull. If you remember the toy there, you had this stone-walled castle, but then the cardboard computer pieces were all set up. It was like, yeah, we appreciate the ancient castles, but we also have amazing computers. Now, Gypsy Woman is just outlining what's going to happen. Is they're going to resurrect ghosts, and they're going to use 3 trinkets. There's a coin, there's a necklace, I think it was a ring, and the Gypsy Woman's calling through the crystal ball, and she calls this Roman coin. So the ghost of an ancient Roman soldier resurrects.
With this wedding ring, I call upon the spirit of the past.
So now she's using an old wedding ring to call up, I think it's a Valkyrie. Yeah, so like a...
Yes, I am here.
I'm not exactly sure where she's from. She looked a little Valkyrie, but a little like Native American.
American warrior.
Well, here's the American
realm
warrior.
of the living.
She calls in the ghost of a pilot. Now, here's what's awesome is apparently the pilot, it's a U.S. like World War I pilot, right? Not only is he a ghost, but his airplane is a ghost. So we've got the spirit of his biplane fighting for Cobra as well as him. And the Valkyrie lady, she's a ghost and her horse is a ghost.
Where is the third spirit?
So I'm thinking she was married to her horse, and I'm thinking the locket for the World War I pilot, inside the locket, the picture was just a picture of his plane, which is why they both survive into the netherworlds. So the ghosts show up, and we just have Cobra kind of lay it out. Cobra Commander lay it out for him. He says, I've got these objects of yours. If you want them back, you're going to do what I'm going to tell you to do. Cut to the Joe base, where this biplane is attacking it, and it's shooting hellfire at the Joes. So we go to commercial with these ghostly hellfire flames. This week's file card feature is on Wild Weasel, the Tank Smasher pilot. His file name is classified, and his military specialty is the ground support pilot, the anti-tank aircraft. His birthplace is unknown, and grade is left unknown as well. Wild Weasel cut his teeth in the bush wars of South America and Africa during the last decade. His knowledge of close support aircraft is wide and varied, ranging from jury-rigged civilian conversions to ultra-state-of-the-art flying weapons platforms, replete with laser-guided missiles and ECM pods. It is rumored that a mouth injury inflicted by ground fire during a strafing run was the cause of the characteristic sibilance in his speech pattern. Wild Bill says, well, he may be a back-shooting, low-down snake in the grass, but the boy can fly like nobody's business. You gotta respect the skunk for that. Hey, what did Voltaire say? To forgive our enemies their virtues, that is the greater miracle. Now, Wild Weasel came with the blue Cobra Rattler. He had a completely red outfit, and he looked awesome. Like, he was a really good-looking figure. Kind of a blue kerchief going on. And when I was a kid reading his file card, I was absolutely confused by these two phrases. Wild Bill cut his teeth in the bush wars of South America. And the other phrase, the other sentence that they used was, it is rumored that a mouth injury inflicted by ground fire during a strafing run was the cause of his characteristic sibilance in his speech pattern, right? I thought that meant I'd never heard the phrase cut his teeth as like a proving ground or, a rookie kind of learning the ropes. Between the cutting of his teeth and his mouth injury bit, I thought he was just horribly disfigured, and it all happened in the bush wars of South America. Every time I played Wild Weasel, he had no teeth because he cut his teeth. So he would talk really weird because, as they say, he has a sibilance in his speech pattern because he had no teeth. I thought he had no teeth. That's one of the early turns of phrases that G.I. Joe taught me. Horseshoes and hand grenades would be another one. The word enfilade would be another one. There was, and the list goes on thanks to Larry Hama. But yeah, just so if you're out there listening and you also thought Wild Weasel literally cut his teeth, you're not alone. Wild Weasel, Rattler pilot, we salute you. And your dentist.
Now back to G.I. Joe.
Total hellfire attacking the Joe base. Now, where's barbecue? Maybe to help kind of put it out? I don't know. But the biplane is attacking. Joes take cover behind an APC. We got Wild Bill. We've got Snow Job. Snake Eyes is running around. Alpine, Duke, and then that Transylvania general guy or whatever his name is. They look good, though. I gotta say, the animation on this episode is actually really top notch. Like all the figures are on point. The flames look good. The vehicles look actually really great. Lots of different angles on them that we don't normally see. Roadblock and Cover Girl, they're now chasing down this Valkyrie warrior. I'm not exactly sure where she's from, but I feel like it's Norse. Like they're doing a bit of Norse. Yeah, because she just shot an arrow that iced over their slugger, the G.I. Joe slugger tank. So that makes me think she's a Norse mythology, like Thor. Speaking of, I just read a Thor annual from 1980, where it was Roy Thomas just taking the opportunity to retell the Trojan War, and it was artfully done and a good read. But I'm reading the whole thing, and I'm like, Thor's not doing anything. He's literally just using it as an excuse to retell the Trojan War. Sorry, it's that's a tangent. Now, turns out Quick Kick's hanging out, and he is sneaking through one of the buildings, and he comes across his own ghost.
Caesar's ghost, right?
Yeah, that's funny. Great Caesar's ghost. That's a Superman joke. But so we got a centurion from the Romans, and he is about to what does he do? His sword is controlling Quick Kick swords, which is kind of cool, like afterlife kind of powers. That's sweet. So the one does hellfire, the other one she does ice, like she freezes stuff over. She froze over the exterior of the other building, and it looks like this guy controls metal because he just willed a bunch of metal sheets to move. So like swords or metal, like metallurgy, this other ghost can control, which is kind of cool. Like I said, this is a fun episode. It's just very weird. Like it's just very not the G.I. Joe that I love. Like kind of grounded, 1 foot in reality kind of stuff. Ghosts and hellfire and all this stuff. Oh, this World War I guy is tearing him up. Wild Bill jumps into his dragonfly, and he's going to try to chase him out of the sky.
Gotcha!
Yeah, well, Wild Bill's always there with a hoot and a holler, right? Biplane disappears into the clouds. Of course, Wild Bill ain't going to be able to find him because he's a ghost.
Heel! Wild Bill, a plane strafing the factory. We're pinned down in a pile of explosives.
Okay, my first note would be don't hang out near the explosives. Just gonna say, maybe you should have looked out where the explosives were before you hid behind them, Duke. They run cross paths with the Transylvania guy.
So, Cobra has a stealth device that lets a plane sneak past radar.
See, they don't know what's up.
Haven't they got? Something doesn't jive.
They're not
That
aware.
is because you do not understand what you are fighting.
Baroness, what are you doing
Turns out the
here?
Baroness shows
I
up.
come in peace.
This is 2 episodes in a
You
row
must learn the secret of
where
the Phantom Brigade.
Cobra Commander.
You are being attacked by ghosts. Your weapons are useless against them.
Yeah, this is the second episode where Cobra Commander pisses off one of his underlings. And the underling says, well, screw you. I'm going to leave, and I'm going to go help G.I. Joe team.
This. Call it job security. If the ghosts defeat you, Cobra Commander may no longer need my services. The ghosts are bound to this world by 3 objects which
that
Cobra Commander
just
possesses.
doesn't make sense to me. If Cobra Commander defeats you, then he doesn't need my services. Your services are there to defeat G.I. Joe. So when he is employing you, are you not then trying to beat G.I. Joe? I'm quite confused with all this, everything that's going on here. Well, the World War I ace shows up, and he's shooting at the Joes once again. So we got more hellfire. CoverGirl jumps in the Dragonfly with Wild Bill, and they're gonna chase him down in the sky. I always love it when CoverGirl gets involved in the mix, and we've already talked Wild Bill. We know he's a fan favorite. This World War I pilot's pretty good. He gets a drop on him. And we're going to go to commercial with Wild Bill getting shot out of the sky.
After these messages. Now, back to G.I. Joe.
Aren't you gonna return his fire?
Not till I know who I'm a-shooting at.
Yeah, see, Wild Bill, he's he's not too quick on the trigger. I like that. Speaking of the World War I flying ace stuff, I just watched the Peanuts movie over the weekend. That's a delightful movie. It's awesome. Like if you're a Peanuts guy, if you like Charles Schultz and his brand of depressing comic strips, it's really a charming movie. It's not lighting the world on fire, but it's super sweet, and it's very much like the Charles Schultz strips come to life. And there's a bunch of Red Baron stuff in there, which always makes me laugh. So Wild Bill and CoverGirl, they just showed this World War I ace guy. They showed him a U.S. flag,
Why, that
which
just a kid.
I don't know why he didn't notice the flag painted on the plane, but fine. They waved the flag at him, and he realized that they were with the U.S. Even though, wait a minute,
I've been away from home for months.
the flag that he would
Why are you
know
looking at me that way?
back in World War I was not the U.S. flag that it is today.
Emptiness. There's nothing there.
I don't even know how many stars we had on it. Well, I guess it would have been that different, right? We was already in the stars and bars. Okay, I'm just nitpicking now. So they're talking to these ghosts, and they basically convince the ghost, or the ghost tells them that
Can't be dead.
they're being held captive by the lockets and all the trinkets that Cobra's holding it, and the ghost is trying to kind of get a grip on this.
My CO's keeping the locket she gave me till I get back to base.
This commanding officer of yours wear a mask?
Yeah, and he
Yeah,
hisses
see, ghosts
a
are
lot.
dumb. Ghosts are dummies, and these dummies serve Cobra Commander because he brought him back from the undead, or from the dead. You know what I'm saying?
And destroy.
Now they're making it snow, and they're making it miserable. Gung Ho, of course, is cold because he doesn't wear a shirt. And the World War I guy is trying to convince them that, hey, man, you were human once. Like let's help these guys. We shouldn't be beholden to this weirdo in the hood.
He died soon after we were married.
And we get a little backstory on
I loved him
Valkyrie,
very much.
that her husband died right after they were married. Maybe we'll learn a little bit about the Centurion.
I know what
Nope,
we're doing is
nothing.
wrong.
They disappeared.
But till I get Jenny's locket back, I must follow the commander's orders.
Then we'll try and get it back for you, son. But we might need your help.
The Joe's
I'll do
talking
what I
to
can.
ghosts,
And try to convince the others too.
and the ghosts are trying to convince each other. It's like the Frighteners meets G.I. Joe. He takes off in his biplane, and I want someone on the G.I. Joe team to say to someone else, "Are you kidding me? It's a ghost. We're talking to a ghost." I mean, I just want someone to be like, "This is ridiculously incredible." Okay, that was awesome. We just saw a snow serpent report into Cobra Commander, and then out of nowhere, Snake Eyes shows up and kung fu chops him out. Snake Eyes and Snow Job and Timber are assaulting the castle through the snow. Now we've got a hovercraft approaching the castle with the ghosts in tow. They're flying overhead. And the rest of the squad is on the
We'd be
hovercraft.
getting tactical support from the spirit world.
I wonder what it feels like, after.
That's deep, Roadblock. That is some deep, deep stuff. And from above, Duke is parachuting. Duke and who do we got? Gung Ho. And Airborne shows up. That's pretty sweet. And Ripcord shows up. So Halo, Ripcord. See, I love that. Like, those two, Halo and Ripcord, weren't in this episode, but they're jumping out of a plane, so let's use Halo and Ripcord. That's the best. The World War I pilot blasts open the door for the Joes with the Hellfire, and they blow in there, and they're driving off the Cobra soldiers.
Gung Ho, we're going snake hunting.
Yeah, Gung Ho and Duke start going snake
Cobra
hunting.
Commander's around here somewhere.
Now, I want to check in and see where... we got some green shirts show up. There's a green shirt there who's very, very confident, saying Cobra ain't going to get past him. I have a feeling Cobra's going to get past that guy. Eels are attacking the hydrofoil. Major Blood apparently has never left the Fang this whole episode. He's flying overhead, taking pot shots at the hovercraft. Cutter shows up, of course, because we're on the whale.
Prepare to launch. I need help with this Joe hovercraft.
I like Major Blood's determination, though. Like, he's not running. He's like, we're going to get him. I just need a little help. He calls the Firebat Squadron, but they get taken out by Timber and Snow Job and Snake Eyes. They get jumped. It's pretty sweet. So Major Blood is attacking the whale with the Fang, and I think he's about to get Dragonfly. Wild Bill just answered something that Major Blood said to himself. I'm not sure how he heard him, but okay, it's cartoons. We'll get it. And Blood dives out of the Fang, destroyed and defeated.
Pick you up, Major. I don't go bobbing for rotten apples.
It's awesome. Major Blood's a rotten apple. I like that they didn't give him a parachute. They just had him dive into the water. So the Joes are assaulting this castle. Cobra Commander's blaming it all on the, quote, stupid
Cobra
ghosts.
Commander, to take back what is ours.
And they show up telling them, you give us our lockets back.
Command you!
We are no man's slaves. We are bound to this world by those objects.
Right?
Not by your will.
So they're saying it's the objects. It's not Cobra Commander's will. So he's got to run. And he runs right into the arms of Duke and Gung Ho, although he's frightened out of his mind. I mean, you're playing with ghosts, dude. And they're haunting him. They've inhabited a skeleton. The skeleton is talking to Cobra Commander. It's all pretty creepy. Like it's good, fun, creepy stuff, you know. But it's just not super Joey, you know. Like even later episodes, like let's say the Serpentor. When we get to Serpentor, yeah, they used, you know, the DNA of warriors and stuff, but it was like grounded in science, you know. This is it's a little mystical for me, but you know, it's still good. It's still well done. Like the animation is tight. Animation on the skeleton is really great. It's super creepy, and the skeleton scares the crap out of Cobra Commander, and he flees. Jumps on a hydrofoil and he takes off.
We got what we came for.
And they got the trinkets. They're going to give them back to the ghosts, and the ghosts are going to be able to go on to the afterlife.
My dear Jenny, I loved you so.
Let's see what the
carried this for good luck.
Centurion is up
Lost
to.
it gambling one night.
The Centurion, it wasn't for love. He just lost a quarter gambling. Now, the Valkyrie, she can be back with her husband. The pilot loves Jenny, and the Centurion loves gambling. So Duke and the rest of the Joes, in a very cool little ceremony, they dig a hole, and in this hole they bury all these trinkets. And once they're buried, the ghosts now disappear into the afterlife. This feels like the end of an episode of The Incredible Hulk, quite frankly. Like,
Come on, Joes. Time to go home.
I want to right here I want to hear do 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 do. And Wild Bill's looking up. He's not sure exactly what he's seeing, and there it is. He sees the World War I biplane fly off into the night, and Jenny's reunited with her pilot. So that's pretty sweet. I mean, it's good. It's fun. It's just little, you know, a little less about shows, a little more about these ghosts. Yeah, so that's it for this week. Very fun. Next week, we got a special guest coming on. I can't wait for you to hear it. Once again, thank you for my wife for finishing last week's episode. I'm not exactly sure how I got synthoided, but I'm glad that I'm here and I'm back and I'm making G.I. Joe great again. And thank you mostly listeners. I appreciate you guys listening every week. I really love it. This is getting more fun every time we do it. So y'all have a great day, and now you Joe, and Joey's half the battle.